Welcome to Lesson 22 of CKLA Skills. Today we're going to look at another personal narrative. We're going to discuss the story elements in the personal narrative, and we're going to begin thinking about and planning our own personal narrative. Now this is the writing process, and I want you to read the steps in the writing process with me. Plan, draft, edit, publish. So far, we have learned about our personal narratives. They're those nonfiction retelling of someone's life. So it's a nonfiction, it's a personal story that's real. We've looked at some different examples, and The Big Storm was the first example that we looked at. And that was a story that was written by someone around our age that could possibly be one of our classmates. Now, think about your personal narratives and how they're like fictional stories. They're like fictional stories because they have the same story elements, right? Okay, I would like you to look for page 123. It's 21.3 at the top. It's titled Cupcakes for Mom. Like you to pause the video and look for that story. It's page 123, 21.3. You also need to look for the story elements page that we're going to fill out about this personal narrative. It's on page 133. So I'll also give you another opportunity to find that page. But go ahead and make sure that you have page 123 in front of you. Okay, you're going to follow along and you're going to read with me Cupcakes with Mom. Now, this is a story that was written similar to The Big Storm, but this was written by someone. It's a nonfiction story, so it's not fake. It's a real story. It's someone that's around your age or could be around your age. And it's retelling the who, what, when, where, and why of an event that happened in their life. So I want you to read the story with me. So put your finger at the top on your title, Cupcakes with Mom. Last week, I made cupcakes with Mom. We went to the shop to pick up the items we needed for cupcakes. We got frosting and cake mix. We got cooking oil and eggs. When we got home, we packed our bags and switched on the oven. Mom got out a mixing dish and a spoon. I dumped the cake mix in the dish. Mom let me add oil and 2 eggs. I mixed everything together. Mom added paper liners to the cupcake pan. Then I got my spoon and scooped the batter into the cupcake liners. Mom set the timer for the cupcakes to bake in the oven. Waiting for the cupcakes to cook was the hardest part. It took so long. I kept thinking on the cupcakes. I kept checking on the cupcakes, excuse me. At last, the timer started beeping. I jumped up and down and shouted, "Cupcakes, cupcakes!" Mom got mitts and pulled out the hot pan. The sweet smell of fresh baked cupcakes filled the kitchen. Mom and I put sweet pink frosting on the cupcakes. I got frosting on my fingers and I licked it off. Then Mom and I each chose a cupcake to eat. Yum, yum. Those were the best cupcakes. Now you notice that this person, when they're writing a lot of details. So you can even kind of smell, like you can kind of remember some of those smells, things you've smelt baking in your house. You may have possibly baked something with your parents or maybe somebody before, grandma. But if you have, you kind of can relate to this person's story. They used lots of details. They talked about colors. They talked about feeling words, excitement, how they're waiting patiently on it, and they're going back and checking over and over again. So you kind of see this person excited and waiting on these cupcakes. They're going to be so sweet and so good. So whatever event that you pick to write about, you've got to know lots of detail about it. You're going to have to show lots of emotion when you're writing. Tell how you were feeling, what it looked like. Help the reader to see the picture in their head like this author did. And a personal narrative has the same elements as a fictional narrative or a fictional story. It has that title, the setting, the characters, and the plot. So we're going to look at Cupcakes with Mom, and we're going to determine what these elements are based on what we read, the personal narrative we just read. Now, you can go ahead and pause the video. You need to look for 22.2 in your packet. Look for 22.2. Now, this is one of those personal narrative or fictional narrative story element charts. So it's the same chart that we used previously with our fictional narrative, but this is going to be for our own personal narrative. We're going to use one of these tomorrow on our own event that we're going to write about. But today we're going to go back and reflect on the story that we just read, Cupcakes with Mom, and we're going to find these story elements that are in the story Cupcakes with Mom. Now we need to know the answer to the 5 W's. So when you're reading, can you find the who, when, why, what, where? So good readers, they can find these things, and good writers use these things to answer in their writing. So good writers put these parts in their stories. Okay, now let's think about the who of Cupcakes with Mom. So let's fill out our chart. The who is that question about the characters. So it's questioning you on the characters in the story, that story element. So who are the characters in the Cupcakes with Mom? You have I, right? Can you figure out if I is a boy or a girl? Look back in the passage and look for some pronouns. And you know, pronouns like he, she, but if you're talking about I, if you're using that I often, sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out if it's a boy or a girl, right? So go back through it, look at your pronouns, see if you can determine if this is a boy or a girl. It really doesn't give you any indication. I feel like some of you, some of my girls could have written this. I feel like some of my boys could have written this. Okay, so, but you know that this is a child writing it. So the first list of characters, we have a child. Now this child's about your age. You know, they're cooking with their parents. They need their parents' help. So we know it's not like an older child or even an older person because they're getting their parents' help with cooking the cupcakes. And then you've also got Mom in the story, right? Is there anybody else in the story? Is there any more who's? Okay, I don't see any more who's. All right, let's go to, so make sure you fill out your chart, your story element chart. On characters, we're going to write the child and Mom. Now our what. The what is the question about the plot of the story. What happened at the beginning, middle, and end. So on your sheet, you'll see beginning, middle, and end. Now let's take a look back at our story, Cupcakes for Mom. What happened at the beginning of the story? What was sum up the first paragraph? They went to shop for ingredients, right? So the first thing they did, they went to the store to buy what they needed to make cupcakes. Make sure you write that in a complete sentence. The child and Mom went to the store to buy the ingredients to make for cupcakes. What happened in the middle of the story? So look at the middle, actually look in the middle of the story. So I'm going to use my paragraphs for my beginning, middle, and end. And that second paragraph on page 123 is that middle event. Look through that second paragraph and tell me what the middle event is. Okay, so Mom and I are mixing the ingredients to bake. So we're mixing the ingredients that we bought at the store to put in the oven. So the middle of your story, let's write our sentence. Let's write it together. The middle event. Mom and I are mixing the ingredients and putting them in the oven. You don't have to tell all those little details. That's just the main event that happened in the middle. Now look at your last paragraph. Skim through it. What happened at the end of the story? We ate the cupcakes. So at the end of the story, you don't have to put all those details in there about her patient or him patiently waiting, being so excited about the cupcakes coming out of the oven. But at the end of the story, we ate the cupcakes. Mom and I ate the cupcakes. Now, when did the story take place? So when you're answering the question when, can you tell was it in the morning? It could have been on a weekend, right? Could it have been after school? It's probably not going to be in the middle of school hours. Now, depending on your life, you're going to kind of base what you know in the details to determine when it happened. So I would say it probably happened after school at the grocery store or maybe on the weekend because I know like some of your parents work and they would have more time to do this on the weekends. Do we know if it's winter, spring, summer? We don't really know what season it is, but I would kind of think it's probably not. It's probably during the months that you probably don't want to go outside. Because I know if I were at home and it was a pretty day, like maybe a summer day, or maybe it's too hot outside. Maybe it's a really hot summer day. Maybe it's a really cold day. Maybe it's a rainy day. But you're going to put your when did it happen? So using your own knowledge and your details, write your when. What about where? Now the where is pretty concrete. It's not going to change. Your where here, there's two different wheres. Where was the first place they were in the story? They were at the store, right? And then where was the second place they were? They were at home in the kitchen because they were baking the cupcakes. So in your store or on your story element sheet, go ahead and fill out your setting. Tell when and where you think the story took place using the details. So I would say on the weekend, in the store, and in the kitchen. And the last part is going to be your why. So when you're writing your beginning, middle, and end, why did the main character do whatever he or she did? So why did the main character go to the store? Can we answer that using our beginning, middle, and end? Yes, the main character went to the store to buy ingredients, right? Um, when or why did the main character mix the ingredients together to make the cupcakes, right? And why did the main character eat the cupcakes? Because they were really, really yummy and sweet. And that's what they were making them for, is to enjoy that dessert. Okay, so let's take a look at our writing process again. Now, the person that wrote Cupcakes for Mom, they went through all of these steps. So you guys are kind of looking at your planning sheet that they probably would have done before they wrote Cupcakes with Mom. Now, as a writer, they would have put all this together. So they started talking and telling their story about the time they made cupcakes with Mom. Came up with their title, told the events in order. They kind of organized it and they started their writing and they came up with a rough draft. Then the author of this story would have gone through, looked for those complete sentences, that editing process. Made sure that their words were spelled correctly. They read it out loud to themselves, made sure that it made good, complete sense to someone else reading it. And then they published it for us to read. Now, the sheet you're going to be looking at tonight with your parents is a sheet that's going to be giving you some ideas on what to write your personal narrative of. And I kind of want you to start thinking now. Start thinking of an event that happened in your life that you could be writing about. Of course, none of us have really been on a class field trip lately, but you could have been on a field trip last year that you really, really remember. You can kind of come up with a lot of detail and answer those 5 questions. Maybe a visit, may not be a classroom visit, but it could possibly be maybe a visit that you've had over the holiday, or maybe a visit that you've taken recently that you want to talk about. A performance, something that you've done in front of people, like maybe you had a baseball game, or maybe you had a dance recital. Now, looking back on our personal narrative that we read, Cupcakes with Mom, you could see lots of details. You could actually kind of see this happening in someone's kitchen. Now, as you're thinking about your topic, make sure you've got lots of details that you remember. Now, make sure that you're coming up with details that you can say, I saw this, I did this. You're using lots of I in there because you're telling the story. It really happened. You're telling what you went through using the pronoun I. Now you can pause the video to find page 135 in your workbook. It's 22.3. And this is a parent letter, and it's kind of giving them a little bit of information on your personal narrative. So it's kind of a guide to help them help you pick what you're going to write about. And you've got some different events that possibly could have happened in your life that you want to discuss or write about in your personal narrative. You can pick one of those, or you may pick something different if you have some other ideas on what you want to write your personal narrative on. Now, if you look at the back of page 135, you will see where you can list some ideas. So the goal for today is to come up with your own idea of a personal narrative. So what are you going to be writing about? Come up with your own idea and start thinking about it. Get your brain going on those who, what, when, where, and why questions. Now let's review them. The who is going to give you your characters. So can you tell who was there when you're talking about this topic? Can you tell when and where it took place? Your setting? Can you describe when and where it took place? Can you tell what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end of this event? And can you tell why it happened? So your homework for tonight. Okay, so let's review our learning targets. Our learning target. I can plan and draft a personal narrative for myself. So as a class, we've looked at several different personal narratives, talked about their story elements. Now this is your time. You're going to plan and think about your personal narrative that you're going to write. So your homework for tonight, brainstorm ideas and kind of gather a central idea, what you're going to write about on your own personal narrative. All right, have a great day.